Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we have a very exciting review of the newly released R2-D2. As you might tell from the box, it is not classified as a UCS set and is probably considered to be a Master Builder series. So this set was released today, May 1st, as part of the Star Wars May the 4th promotion. So LEGO released this set today, as well as this little mini build of the Tatooine Homestead. So if you spend over 160 Australian dollars, you receive that little gift for free. So this R2-D2 set retails for 330 Australian dollars. It is recommended for ages 18 plus. Its set number is 75308 and has 2,314 pieces. So let's take a look at the box. So on the side it's just got the name there, and then on the back it's got all the different features and bits. So around this area here you can see the head spins. It's got a little lightsaber that comes out, and then it's got little bits that come out on the front. And here it's got a diagram of how big it is. So it's 31 centimeters tall and 20 centimeters wide. So if you're wondering if you have a space big enough to display this set, then that's how big it is. And here you can see the little display stand. So it's got the information panel and also the R2-D2 minifigure on top of a 50 years of Lucasfilm logo. And then on the bottom we've got a couple of different scenes from different movies. So we've got R2 in The Phantom Menace with Anakin, and then with Luke in A New Hope, and then on Adrian Kloss with C-3PO. So on this side of the box we just have a side view of R2 there. Alright, so let's get into the build. Alright, so here we have the finished build. So it came up really nice. It's got lots of curved pieces around him to make him look circular. Inside him there is a Technic frame, which is what everything connects to. So he's very sturdy. The actual Technic build inside of him is probably the part that takes the longest to do. There's lots of little Technic pieces that all go together, and it's fairly complicated to do. But from the outside you can't actually see any of the Technic pieces. It looks really good. So his head spins around. It's a fairly firm connection. You can't just spin around freely, you've got to actually move it. He's got some tools that come out of him. He's got a little arm there that you can use to grab onto stuff. And that extends out like that. It's also a bit firm, so you've got to do it with two hands. And then on the other side, he's got his little computer terminal arm bit, or spacecraft linkage as the display stand says, which I'll show you in a minute. And that also extends out a little bit further. And they both come out with a little bit at the back there on either side. You push that in, and that pushes this bit out a little bit, just enough for you to be able to move it out yourself. Alright, now onto the head. So the head also has two more functions. So it's got this little bit that comes up and you can spin around. It doesn't stay up though, you've got to actually hold it unless you spin it around, and it just sort of rests up like that. So that's just a little bit that's connected to a Technic axle that goes down into a hole. So the only downside to that is that there's little gaps there, and those don't really fill in. And then on this side, you can lift this corner up here, and inside is a lightsaber. Luke's lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. So just there's a little storage bit in there for it to sit in. It just sits in there nicely. Unfortunately, this piece isn't connected by like a hinge or anything. It just sort of sits there attached to that one stud there. So you just have to pull that off. Yeah, so I'll give you a all around look at the head. Got nice detailing at the back. And that's a little gap, another little gap there. I'll show you from this side. It's got the two little sensors there in the light blue. It's very nicely curved off with all these slope pieces, the 1x4 curved slopes and also the 1x3s. A couple of other 1x2s, other slope pieces. Yeah. And then at the front it's got all the different sensors. So it's got a red one there, his main sensor there, which is on a hinge piece, so it's angled back slightly. Alright, now onto the main feature, which is his third leg. I had to put the camera down to show you this, as it takes two hands to do. So to get his third leg out, you have to pick him up, move him forward like that, and you can sit him down. So that's one of the reasons why that Technic structure inside is so complicated, so that way the third leg can come out easily like that. You have to lift him up with both hands, because if you just sort of move him forward, the legs don't, there's the Technic beams in the legs that go all the way down. So if you don't lift him up, the Technic beam doesn't come up far enough to be able to move back like that. So if you just push him over on the side, his feet won't move with his legs, so you can't actually position him without having the third leg out. Or you'd have to sort of do that, then he's a bit lopsided, he won't stand up straight. So once he's in this position, he's very stable, he won't fall over or anything. Third leg is very strong and holds all the weight at the moment. And then to retract the third leg, you have to put the other two back into the normal downwards position, and then you can just lift up that third leg into the bottom of him, so it just goes up like that. into there. And you can just put them back down. So now let's take a closer look at the body and legs. So around the body, there's some nice detailing. It's got all these little bits along the middle of him, and some blue and white stripes along that side. So these top blue bits here can fold out, and they are the little zapper bits he uses to stun other enemies like the Jawas or other droids. So they just fold it in and out nicely. And going around the side, the legs have nice detailing. These circular pieces here are the same ones used on the X-Wing for the engines earlier this year. Got some nice curving around here and around the feet. And around the back, it's not much to look at here, but it's all nicely curved off with these slope and curved slope pieces. And on the other side, this leg's identical but the opposite. And on this version they used gold pipes here to represent the sort of cables that go into that little box there. Alright, so this is the display stand. So it's got the little R2-D2 minifigure, and it's got all the details, such as the manufacturer, model, primary function, height, equipment, and processing indicator color. And it also comes with this little brick here, which is a 1x4 brick that's 3 bricks high, and it's got the print 50 Lucasfilm, which is for the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm. So the stand is the same size as other buildable character sets that have come out recently. Right, so overall I think it looks really good, and it's definitely an improvement for the last model. So speaking of the last model, let's compare this one to the old one. So these are the two UCS style R2-D2 sets side by side. So this one came out in 2012, and this is the most recent 2021 version. So they are both very similar, however there are a few differences between them. One of the ones that stands out the most is the blue on this one. So at the time, LEGO hadn't released all the pieces in dark blue, so instead of creating new elements or new colours of existing elements, they just used the normal blue colour, so those little bits stand out everywhere. Whereas on the newer model, there is no blue, just dark blue, which looks a lot cleaner, a lot better. The other main difference between them is the shaping. So this one uses bricks, just built upwards mainly, in the main body area, whereas this one uses a lot of curved slopes to get a more circular effect. Whereas this one's a lot more blocky. And especially the head, this one uses a lot of these curved slopes to create the sort of arches, and then there's a few studs here and there, whereas this one is completely studded. So it's tried to create a circular effect just using plates and bricks, which looks decent, but I think the newer one looks a lot better. Another difference is these hoses on the bottom. So the older one uses brown, whereas the new one uses the gold. I think gold looks a lot cleaner, but brown is more accurate. And in the instruction manual it includes a picture of R2, so you can see there, and the hoses definitely look brown more than gold. All these main details on the front are very similar on both. On this one they're a bit more oval sideways, whereas this one they're more like upwards. Alright, so now onto the features. So this one's got similar doors to the newer one, but you have to open the doors up manually. And then at the back it's got the twist instead of push, and the bit comes out, but instead of just coming out a little bit like this one does, so if you were to open that one up, push on the back, it just comes out a little bit, and you've got to pull it out the rest of the way. Whereas this one, you twist it and it comes out completely, and then you twist it and it goes back in. Whereas the new one, to get it back in, you just push it down. I think the old one's definitely better in that way, since you don't have to manually push it in. You can't actually push it in manually. And then on the older one, you have to push in the door manually, which you have to do the same on the new one. They both have these little arm bits that come out, little shockers. They both work more or less the same, you just have to sort of try and pull them out with your fingers. I think the older ones are easier to do. However, I think the newer ones look a bit more accurate, especially since the older ones use those blue pieces in there. And the new ones also look a bit more hidden away, fit in with the rest of the curves, whereas this one, these bits are curved, whereas these bits are just flat. Now onto the head. So the older one doesn't have any features on the head apart from being able to twist, and it can just twist freely like that, whereas the new one doesn't really twist freely, you have to like physically move it everywhere, whereas this one can spin a little bit. And apart from that, the older one doesn't have any features on the head, whereas the new one has two. It has both the little sensor looker thing that comes up like when he's underwater, and it's also got that lightsaber hidden in there. And you take off this little panel. They both have similar detailing around the head. They've both got the main sensors on the front. And then on the back, they've also got all the other little bits. So let's take a closer look at the stands now. They both have the same information on them. The only difference between them is the picture. So this one has obviously got the picture of the older one, and this one has a picture of the newer one. Both of them use the same colour scheme, being black and white, and then a little bit of red for that little sensor. Another sort of weird detail is that this one has this white line here going over the picture of R2, whereas this one, the picture of R2 is in front of that white line going across. That's just a small little detail that I find a bit weird. So this one uses an 8x16 tile with a big sticker, and this one uses a 6x12 half plate, half tile. It's got just the studs around the edges and then the sticker in the middle. They both have an R2 minifigure. This one's the older version with the light grey head and the light blue outlinings, and this one has a more dark silver head with the dark blue outlines. And this one also has the 50 years of Lucasfilm brick there. So now the third leg. Alright, so to do the third leg of the older version, you have to first push down that one, and then you can pull out the third leg, push it back up, and then he sits in position like that. So it's a little bit more tricky than the newer version. There's some of these bits at the back. These bits here get in the way when you're moving the feet like that. It doesn't flow quite as nicely. And then to get the foot back up, you just push it up like that. But for the newer version, all you have to do is flick them forward and set them down. It doesn't always work quite as easily as that, but I think it's a lot easier than the older version. So I think in terms of details, looks and functionality, the newer one wins in all three categories. I think it's a lot better, a lot cleaner looking, and has more functions than the older one does. Now, in terms of the gift with purchase that came with this set, it was the Tatooine Homestead. I think although it's a nice build, and it kind of includes R2 as like a little stud there with the Jawa sandcrawler, I think it doesn't really suit going with R2, and something that would have worked a lot better was the R2 they released about 4 years ago for May the 4th. So I think if they'd released something like this, or this exact set, alongside this, it would have worked really well, like how they released a little Batmobile with the UCS style Batmobile they released a few years ago. I just wanted to also add that the box for this set is huge. Like, look at that. That's how big this set is. And that's the box next to it. It's almost the same size. That picture on the back is also like more or less the same size. So if you're wondering how big the actual model will be, look at the box. And that's how big it is. Yep, almost 1-to-1 scale. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you thought about this set, and if you think it's better than the older one, and if you'll be picking it up or not. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.